everyone, and welcome to episode 485 of the MTGGoldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week, kicking things off with the owner of MTGGoldfish, Richard. How are you this fine Monday, Richard?
Good morning, Seth. Got a good card haul this weekend, so it was a super hyped opening up. You'll never guess it. Crim. You see this?
Is that good?
It's alternate art. Nico Robin. This all Sunday. It's One Piece for you podcast followers. But I got Magic cards too. But I can't show you my Magic cards because they're literally in a piece of Tupperware uncurling themselves right now. That is my life. I buy One Piece cards, immediate gratification. Magic cards going to Tupperware to uncurl. That's DCG's 2024.
You gotta earn it. I got my super collection or whatever premier pick selection, which came with like a fancy Suru and all of that. After selling everything.
Yeah.
Did you open packs, Richard, or do you buy singles?
No, I buy singles. I don't open packs. That's
right.
for
responsible gaming. I got it. We got another co-host in Crim. Good morning, Crim. How you doing this morning?
Morning. I'm just a little under the weather from all the dust and everything that I got from yesterday. Good Lord.
Oh, you were at like the Ren Fair or something, right? I saw a picture on Twitter.
I went to the Ren Fair. It was really fun. Love going to those things, but kicks up my allergies. Dude, I got
they had authentic diseases.
Yeah, I had the true experience.
So anyway, this week, we're going to be jumping around a little bit. We got some more Modern Horizons 3 spoilers, even though we don't really kick off full spoiler season till tomorrow. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Wanted to talk a little bit about MagicCons, Commandfests. There was a question on Reddit about it. The standard ban window's coming up. Is there anything we want to change there? Modern Horizons 2, maybe a retrospective, now that we've had a couple of years with those cards in the format, and we're going into Modern Horizons 3. So we're going to be bouncing around. But before we get into that, a reminder that today's show is brought to you by Card Conduit. And Card Conduit's the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. If you ever get tired of the hassles of buy listing, you can skip them with Card Conduit. You can use their curated service and send in as many cards as you want with a buy list value of $1 or more and pay just a 5% service fee. And if you want to do a bit of work, you can use the sorted service where you list and sort your cards in advance and pay just a 2% fee. Either way, you're going to get a detailed report with the results and a fast payment once your order is processed. And you can even get another 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/MTGGoldfish. Card Conduit, they're the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. So thank you to Card Conduit for supporting this show. And let's talk some Magic. And before we get to Modern Horizons 3, which is kind of where a lot of our topics spring from, I got to ask you, Crim. Last week on the podcast, we talked a little bit about the heist mechanic on Magic Arena and whether it was a problem because everyone been freaking out about it on the Arena subreddit. And you sent me a message a couple days ago and like, dude, we got to talk about heist because I actually played with it. So Crim, what did you find about heist now that you actually got a chance to try out the mechanic?
Yo, the Magic keeps making Hearthstone cards that are kind of busted. Like this is one of those ones where I think they need to patch up pretty quick. I mean, I don't think it's like it's not in the level of busted where it's like Hogak or it's going to end timeless or anything like that. But I do think that heist straight up doesn't shuffle, but it also steals from the deck, right? Like living up to the name heist. It's not like you generate a copy of your own or anything like that. You just straight up take the one from your opponent's deck. So that, luckily for me, I play a bunch of singletons. So if anyone tries to heist me, nice try. But that could also be to my own detriment. But whatever. Point is, like the 1 mana thing that the Arena Reddit was talking about, I don't think that the sky is falling, but I do think that this mechanic is kind of nuts. It being able to exile 3 cards from the graveyard and gain 3 life, meaning you just counterspelled a Bolt and ate 3 of their cards on top, or stole one of their best cards. Like, this is actually kind of nuts. I built a whole heist deck, and it felt kind of nuts.
Ooh, so the mechanic actually, I still haven't really played with it. What format did you play it in? Did you play Alchemy or did you play it? You played it in Timeless. So even in Timeless, like the strongest format at Arena, it still felt pretty like a powerful mechanic.
Yeah, like there's 2 things that stand out in particular, but like specifically that 1 mana graveyard hate. That one is just so sweet. I play like 4 of those. And then on top of that, there was just I don't know. I don't know if this one's like as good, but it definitely is still fun to play with. There's a 2-mana like red drop that has Heist. And then there's a Heist counterspell that's like a negate, but also a removal spell if you control something from your opponents.
Oh.
And it's like a mini command for 3 mana. So it's like a Flames of Anor, but like really good. And so, yeah, like I don't know. There's just a lot of power in Heist, and the fact that it just straight up steals the card felt disgusting.
And I imagine if it was kind of working in Timeless, Alchemy is probably like very Heist heavy. And I think that's what I saw. Like some of the arena people were talking about is like in Alchemy, it's just like Heist mirrors everywhere. So do you think, Crim, they're going to have to rebalance this? Like, is this mechanic just too good? How do you rebalance it? What do you like? So if you don't know Heist, you look at 3 cards from you get 3 choices from your opponent's deck, right? And you steal one of those cards is essentially how it works. How would you rebalance Heist? If you wanted to keep the mechanic around but make it a little fair, do you go 2 cards instead of 3 cards? Do you like get a copy rather than stealing it? That kind of, I guess, kills the flavor of heisting. How would you go around fixing it, you think, Crim? Just add mana to the cards?
I think you got to simply either make it so they pay the color of whatever is stolen, like an action, not mana of any color could be spent on it, or rather than the 3 or the 2, you just randomly generate a card from your opponent's deck. Or maybe like as in like instead of the option of 3, because it feels like I'm discovering from my opponent's deck, which feels disgusting in Magic, right? For those that don't know what Discover is, that's Hearthstone, where you literally just pick, you generate one like up to 3 options, right, of your opponent's deck, and it's just wow. So yeah, you just instead of giving me the option, just give me one at random. Or make it so that it hits a land at possible, like if possible. So that because no matter what, you're always guaranteed to hit gas, and that's the problem because you're also looking at
it's
3
3
cards.
non-land.
Yeah, 3 non-lands, so it's always gas. Like it's kind of disgusting. Either that or so yeah, it has to be just randomly give me anything, allow lands to be hit of the 3, or just all around maybe. Like, yeah, I think at the very least, stealing from your opponent's deck is kind of nuts. So maybe it needs to just be generate a copy for yourself.
Wow. So maybe the arena Reddit was was right after all. Usually I kind of like take anything that Reddit says with a grain of salt because we just love to complain so much. But in this case, maybe it really is a broken mechanic. What do you think, Richard? Should they rebalance it?
A choice of 3 non-lands from your opponent's deck is actually almost tutor levels. The non-land like dramatically changes it. I don't know. Rather than trying to fix the problem through deck building, I'm just gonna declare digital alchemy sucks. Wizards, please. But I don't know. I mean, it sounds funny. It sounds funny when Crim said Discover, but he didn't mean Cascade Fixed. He meant Hearthstone. But this is where we are. This is where we are. I don't know. I guess so. The problem with Alchemy is like you don't have to play Alchemy if you don't like Alchemy. Cool, but if you play Historic or Timeless, these cards are there. So Wizards probably needs to actually fix this if it's actually a problem or people, are unhappy with it. And it does seem insanely strong the way Crim has described it. So yeah.
Normally, like, so far, Alchemy hasn't had that big of an impact on Timeless, I wouldn't say, because, like, Timeless just has so many strong cards. So it's been kind of fine. Like, even the people who are, like, adamantly anti-Alchemy, they still kind of like Timeless because your odds of running into one is, like, very low, even though the cards are legal. It'll be interesting to see if that changes at all with this mechanic. If it really actually breaks out and becomes, this would be the first Alchemy mechanic that really would make it in Timeless if that does end up happening. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. I assume everyone's going to be focused on MH3 coming to Arena, and that'll like shake up the meta and change things. But for now, I guess do some heisting if you're interested. It does sound pretty busted, but let's move on and talk about some Modern Horizons 3. So we don't have a ton of official spoilers, but we got a couple that I wanted to mention because they're either interesting or generating a lot of conversation. And then there's one card that's not officially spoiled yet, but it's just uncommon, and we got to talk about it in the context of Modern. Is this a Modern hero we need? So Richard, why don't you take us through a couple of Modern Horizons 3 spoilers?
All right. So Modern Horizons 3, a lot of the set has been leaked. Wizards has officially published some spoilers are trickling in, but proper spoiler season starts tomorrow. Is it, Seth?
Yeah, so spoiler season kicks off with a Wizard stream, 1 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, and then it'll be going through the end of the following week. We'll have spoilers every day, official ones from there. We'll be covering on the YouTube channel, doing daily spoilers, all that stuff. I think one of the card names I wrote on there, Richard, is not actually real. So if you're looking for it, that it might not exist. Just so you know. Here, I'll put a link. Yeah, that's the card I meant. I think I mashed together a few different cards and spelled them wrong.
but our immersion set now they know how we do this. Okay. Wait, did we talk about this card?
Did we talk about this card?
Okay, hold on. We'll just cut it out if we did, okay? Where do we just we get mixed up because we sometimes talk about cards behind the scenes. Kozilek Unsealing, 2 and a blue. It's a 3-mana enchantment, but don't worry, it's colorless because it's devoid. Whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 4, 5, or 6, create 2 0/1 Eldrazi spawn creature tokens with sacrifice this creature, add a colorless. Whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 7 or greater, draw 3 cards.
How busted is this card?
It's up the beanstalk.
That's what people are saying, that it's up the beanstalk. Is it actually up the beanstalk? It's 3 mana. It doesn't draw a card with its ETB, but I've seen a lot of people saying this card's getting banned. This card is gonna like break Modern. Is it really that good, Richard? Is this really the second coming or third coming, I guess, of up the beanstalk? Satoru was up a beanstalk. That one hasn't really worked out yet. I think players are quick to jump on the up a beanstalk thing now.
You have to cast bad cards. Okay, so what do? You cast like Kozilek's Unsealing, and then you play affinity creatures, right? So affinity has all those creatures. They're 7 mana plus, but you cast them for free. The problem is you just draw more affinity creatures. Whereas with Up the Beanstalk, you're slamming like Evoke Elementals into Leyline Binding, into Evoke Elementals, and you're just doing that. So this could be strong, but I don't think it's Up the Beanstalk levels unless we have a lot of 7 mana value or greater creature spells that are actually staples in the form. Like let's say they make Leyline Binding, but a creature now, right? Then you're like, oh, okay, this is hot, right? So that's the problem. If you're just slamming affinity creatures, this is not as cool. If you're just casting like 1 Eldrazi or something, this is probably not as good. But if there are enough utility creatures at 7 mana value, if they made a new Evoke Elemental creature cycle in Modern Horizons 3, such that this triggers, then we'd be cooking. But maybe we're underestimating the creature mode. Like the 4, 5, 6, you get 2 chump blockers, 2 mana. Maybe that has something to do with it.
I mean, it helps you ramp into the bigger mode, right? Like you cast a 4-drop, you get 2 mana, so the next turn you can cast a 7-drop. So I think this card's really strong, but I don't think it's like Up a Beanstalk for the reason you mentioned. Like it only works with creatures, right? Part of what made Up the Beanstalk so good is stuff like Leyline Binding, all the non-creature spells that can cast and trigger it. This is only going to work with creatures. I don't think this can just be jammed in a whole bunch of decks like Up a Beanstalk, especially since it's lacking the ETB draw card. It's not 2 mana cantrip, and I get this upside. This doesn't do anything the turn you cast it. I do think there could be a combo deck around it, though. I've seen some people posting deck lists that are just like Mirror Enforcers, Frogmites, all the big affinity stuff, and the idea is you just like draw your deck and then use the spawn tokens to cast like Chromatic Star and then cast a Thassa's Oracle and just win the game after you draw your entire deck. So like whether or not that's gonna be like super competitive, like we'll see, but it's generating a lot of hype. What do you think about this one, Crim? How legit is this? Is it up the beanstalk?
No, it's definitely not up the beanstalk. Also, like it is good. It looks fun. It looks like it could be a part of a broken combo, like you had mentioned. But I don't know. It's definitely not beanstalk just because you do have to cast a creature spell and it's 7 or greater. But I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait till Modern Horizons 3 comes out fully, because the only thing that's like Richard had mentioned is that you'd have to play Frogmite. Right? Like it's like, okay, so I'm loaded with a bunch of Frogmites. I've played a bunch of like little affinity creatures, and that's all I can really think of. But maybe there's more to it once Horizons 3 is fully out. As of right now, it just looks solid, looks powerful. It just doesn't seem busted in half.
What about Commander? Is this a card that you can just jam in like big Simic style decks, like a Phil style deck that you're just ramping in all this big stuff? Can you just play this for value in like creature heavy Simic decks that are casting a bunch of big things? Like, is it busted in that context? Like, or good enough to even see play in that context?
Doesn't Phil mostly play like big, like Aminatu's Auguries?
He does have a lot of
like
non-creatures.
Yeah.
So, maybe Phil's not the best example, but you know what I'm talking about. You're playing a Simic deck with a ton of creatures. They're kind of expensive. Drawing 3 is a huge number. That's an ancestral recall when you cast a 7 or more drop. Like, that's kind of ridiculous. And their cheaper drops are going to generate mana, put tokens on the body you can jump block with. I actually kind of like it in Commander. I think it might actually be a really good Commander card.
In Commander, it's kind of nuts, right? Because 4, 5, and 6 generally means that you're just going to get 2 like mana you can use later, right? Yep. Which would then kind of, if your Commander, let's just say, is 4 or greater, or 4, 5, and 6, it's always paying for its tax. Like right? Like if you think about it, right? Because if you create 2 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn tokens, those tokens are like paying for your tax at a later point, unless everything's wiped. But on top of that, your commander now gets attached with a draw 3. Like that. Seth, that's more of a reason now than ever to start casting.
It's mana value though, right? It's not the total
mana value.
If your commander is like 4 mana value with like double tax, that's 8, but that doesn't trigger this, right? It's still 4 mana value.
No. It's still 4 mana value, but you'll get 2 sitting colorless mana. To then now it's like, okay, well now you can't just spot remove my commander. You have to like fully sweep my board to answer my commander. And at some point, if your commander is obviously 7 or greater, then you're drawing 3, which is kind of nuts. So it's like that this card's obviously powerful there. Love it in Commander, but in Modern, I don't know. We'll see about it in Modern. It looks powerful, but in Commander it seems powerful.
The first mode seems more powerful than the second mode in Commander. Like if you look at a normal Commander list, like how many 7 drops do you actually have in your deck that are creatures? It's not that many, but just imagine like turn 3 this, turn 4 Solemn, ramp 1, make 2 Eldrazi spawn, right? It's pretty decent. You just get like 2 chump blockers or like double ramp, and then you do stuff with it. So it's probably decent in Commander. But yeah, like Phil doesn't play that many 7-drop creatures. So I don't know that we can live the dream of like continually chaining them off. You'd have to again run affinity commander deck, and then you can have all the frog bites and thought monitors that you want. But most normal decks don't run that many 7-drops. But the ramp mode seems pretty good, so I like it. And it's sad that we probably won't see this in an Eldrazi deck. It'll probably be in Modern in some kind of affinity deck or something weird, but I can't imagine someone going Thought Knot Seer or something after getting 2 Eldrazi spawned with the Kozilek's Unsealing. You're like, yeah, we did it, boys. Like I can't see that happening. So
well, you do have, what is it, the Forsaken Monument, the one that doubles the colorless mana but also pumps your colorless creatures by 2.
Wait, in Modern, that's playable?
Well, I don't know playable, but
I don't know
it
about playable,
exist.
but it exists. And now, for 4 mana, you just like pooped out like I think like 10 power. That's kind of good.
Oh, so you have to add an Anthem onto this, and you add a Coat of Arms, and then 14.
Yeah. This ramps you into the Coat of Arms, like
you just have a Triumph of the Hordes, and this will just basically lethal.
That's GG's. Pick them up.
I mean, I don't know if it'll see play in Eldrazi. Like, that might be a stretch, but there is another card that we're going to talk about that maybe makes Eldrazi good. If this card seems like Wizards designed it, like, literally to be in an Eldrazi deck, at least in Commander. I don't know about Modern. What about Echoes of Eternity, Richard? What is that card do?
Echoes of Eternity, 3, and then 3 colorless. So 6 mana value, but you have triple colorless in there. Kindred Enchantment. That's the new tribal enchantment. I think this is the first time we've seen that. Eldrazi. If a triggered ability of a colorless spell you control or another colorless permanent you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy.
This card is so absurd. Like, so, okay, it's absurd, but it is also really hard to cast, right? Like 3 literal colorless mana probably means you're gonna have to play it in like a colorless deck, an Eldrazi deck, a Tron deck, an Affinity deck. Like it's even not Affinity even doesn't have a lot of colorless mana, but it's gonna be a cost to get it on the battlefield. On the battlefield though, this card is absolutely ridiculous. Like think about Thought Knot Seer. Going back to Thought Knot Seer, you get this down, you cast Thought Knot, you get 2 Thought Knots, so you're gonna need 2 4/4s. They enter the battlefield, each is gonna double trigger, so you get 4 Thought Seizes from your opponent. Or like you play this into a Solemn, you get 2 Solemns, they each enter the battlefield and double ramp, you get 4 basics out of your deck, and then when they die, you draw 4 cards. Like it's insane what this card can do. Is it good, Richard? Is it good? I see you laughing. I don't know if you're laughing at MagicCons or I'm
Modern.
Either.
The order that you just described it in Modern is non-existent. It's comical just because
it's not
I'm playing the 6 drop first.
They swipe your Thought Knot Seers. They also get all the cards back.
That's also true.
They would draw 4 if they kill both Thought Knots. This is great in Commander. Like very powerful in Commander. I don't know. Okay, this is the one where I think this might be a bit ambitious in Modern. I can see the last one. I don't know about this one in Modern.
It's hard to untap with an actual Panharmonicon in Modern. Like just 4 mana, no mana restrictions. You can play it in any deck. It's hard to get that down without dying. I imagine it's going to be hard to get this down without dying. Although there are Tron decks, right? Like that make a lot of mana quickly. Does Tron want to like Tron into this and not play their Karn or something busted, like and wait a turn, the delayed gratification to double it up the next turn? Probably not. What do you think, Richard? Is there any chance in Modern, or is this just like a colorless Commander dream card?
So expensive. Like I don't know that instead of slamming down the Karn, you slam down this and hope to untap to get more value. But like you have cast triggers and legendary creatures that like this kind, like you can't Ulamog as cleanly as you want because you copy it. It's legendary, cool. But I guess you got to exile 4 things. Maybe
that's pretty good. Yeah. And it works with Annihilator triggers. You cast your Ulamog, exile 4 things, and you double up the Annihilator the next turn.
You what I like about this is it works for fetch lands. I don't know what this means really in the context of a colorless deck in Modern, but like your land is colorless.
6 mana for that.
Right? That's so it will double fetch, but like your expedition maps double fetch and stuff like that, right? So maybe you can actually Tron into this and like not actually die. And then like you're unbeatable at that point, right? Because you're mapping for like 2 lands, and then those lands also double trigger like Sanctum of Ugin, whatever garbage you can like bring up. So once this hits the battlefield and you're not dead, you can probably run away with it. So it's possible, right? What you get to Tron and then you Echoes of Eternity and then you cast like Warping Whale or something and double it up. like you try to double spell the turn you cast.
Yes.
Is it possible? Like maybe this works somehow.
Anything's possible. But Seiju is probably a big issue. I've run into that even with just like Blood Moon, but you do all the work to get this on the battlefield, and like there's so many Beseijus around that can just
Leyline binding.
I'm gonna say this
Leyline
is good.
binding.
So you know how there are decks that do literal nothing in Modern and just rely on the One Ring to win, right? And because the format is slow enough, like this is kind of the same thing, right? Like the format's so slow and like janky that you could actually get this. No, never mind. It's an enchantment. It's gonna die instantly.
Yeah,
but like like if someone's plan is to hide behind the One Ring and win, you just be like, cool, bro. Ulamog all your lands away, and then I can just keep tutoring and go forever. So maybe there's a world where this is good.
Does this not trigger your One Ring burn twice?
Triggered ability in a colorless spell or permanent. Yeah, that is a triggered ability.
So if you get 3 counters on it, I double.
Does Tron run the One Ring now?
Yeah.
I wish it was an artifact. If this was a card that Karn the Great Creator could tutor from the sideboard, I think we'd see it in Tron decks. I think we'd see like the one of I can tutor it up in the right scenario. As an enchantment, it's a little bit of a tougher sell. I'm still excited to try building around it, and I do think
this is unplayable actually. Because everyone's just like, pick your poison. Good job, bro. Right? Because everyone's ready for leyline bindings and random ley lines and stuff like that. Like people will have removal for this. It needs indestructible and can't be sacrificed. It needs to have One Ring text on it. But it'd be funny.
In Commander, I think this is one of the best colorless cards that exists. Like, if you're playing any colorless Eldrazi style deck, I don't know why you wouldn't run this. In like artifacts, Eldrazi, any colorless shenanigans, the card's absolutely absurd. All right, I gotta. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you know what I learned about Forsaken Monument? It's the thing that Crim said, right? Like your colorless lands tap for like double and you pump colorless spells. I'm like, what if I just put this in a 5C deck? Like, it's so broken. And like you can construct a mana base that's 5C and generate all these colors. I'm gonna try Echoes of Eternity. I need that double fetch land value, Seth. Like the fetch land doubles up, Maseju doubles up.
Solemns.
Field of the Dead. Woo!
Oh,
Like there's so much value you can get from this. I am positive I can make a 5C mana base that triggers all of it. Field of the Dead, 5 colors, quad, colorless, whatever. I can make it happen. We're gonna make it happen, Seth. That's what I'm gonna blow up.
It might actually be worth it. Like, there is, like, if you want to build around it, I think the power is there. Plus, you can use colorless mana rocks to help get it down too. So I think you can get this on the battlefield. You need enough colorless stuff to trigger it, but it is wild that it works with lands. If people don't know, all lands are colorless. So even your Amiri the Skyru and your Valakut, like, they're colorless, even though they look like colored cards. So keep that in mind as you're working on this card. All right, I got one more Modern Horizons 3 card I got to ask you about. But first, a super quick word from today's sponsor. Today's show is brought to you by Richard Kane Ferguson's Playmat Kickstarter, which features never-seen-before extended arts on playmats and prints. Richard has been an artist with MTG since the 90s, starting with the Legend set, where he painted iconic cards like Dakan Blackblade, Nebuchadnezzar, and Sol Kanar the Swamp King. After a hiatus in the 2000s, he came back to the MTG fold in 2019 for some more iconic Dakan cards like Dakan Shadowslayer, Dakan Reforged, and a Dakan Blackblade Secret Lair drop. The Kickstarter features iconic card arts like Impure Tutor and Latent Tutor and Force of Will. The extended art playmats and prints are exclusive to the Kickstarter campaign, never to be sold again ever after the campaign ends, so it's super limited edition. The Kickstarter ends this week on Wednesday, May 22nd, so make sure to check it out soon. And all the money raised will help Rich finish his graphic novel, so make sure to check out Richard Kane Ferguson's Kickstarter now, because it's gonna be ending in just a couple days. All right, so anyway, back to Modern Horizons 3. So this card, it's technically an unofficial spoiler, probably better known as a leak, I guess. So if you're someone who's avoiding that, you can plug your ears. But I gotta ask you about this card because I need to know if this is the savior of Modern. And that card is Vexing Bauble. Vexing Bauble, 1 mana artifact. It says, if a player casts a spell and no mana was spent on it, counter that spell. And then you can play 1 tap, sack it to draw a card so it cycles if you don't need it. You can get it off Urza Saga. We have seen free spells really dominate Modern since Modern Horizons 2. The Evoke Elementals, Force and Negation. Cards are being cast with no mana really regularly. Rakdos Scam is still at the top of the format. Is Vexing Bauble the card that changes the meta, Richard and Crim? Like, how big of an impact does this random uncommon actually have?
I do think it's kind of funny that I think it'll probably be decent. It's just funny. This is just attached to a random artifact. I like it. If no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. It sacks itself to draw you a card, so it replaces itself. I mean,
so it hits Cascade, Discover, Evoke Elementals, any free counter spells. That's a lot of like popular Modern decks.
I'm thinking about the what is it, the Void Mirror or whatever it was from Modern Horizons 2 that like sees like no play whatsoever. But this one at least comes down half a mana. It comes down on like turn 1 and replaces itself.
Another thing about Void Mirror, it is twice as much mana and it doesn't cycle. So I think that this is like a huge upgrade. My question for you, Richard, is this even fast enough? Because when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, finally the answer. Then I was like, well, what if I'm on the draw and I'm up against Scam? Like, don't they just like triple Thoughtseize me before I can even play my 1 mana artifact? Like, am I still not just dead?
I mean, I'm
they,
pretty sure
they need a new ley line.
You take this out. You don't play this against Scam, regardless of whether they can scam it out. I think 1 mana changes a big thing. So you really want it against Cascade decks. Yep. Because they're gonna bounce your crap anyway. So like this is not gonna save you, right? But what this allows you is to cast it for 1 mana to put pressure on with the rest of your mana, as opposed to using 2 or 3 mana on your hate piece, which they're gonna bounce anyway, right? So I don't think this really fixes much because it's not a big clock, right? So you could theoretically like turn 1 play this, and then turn 2 play your actual clock and try to get them before they can bounce it. But it's like the same as Lavinia or even like Athalia or something. Like they just bounce it and then they go off. So, and then if you're like, well, I sack it to draw a card, you're dead anyway. Does it like what did this accomplish? Right? Or if you're playing against a 1 ring deck and they have all evoke elementals, and like it doesn't matter, right? Like if they try to remove this and you're like, I sacked this to draw a card, I didn't even go down cards, you're like, well, cool, but my deck is a 1 ring evoke elementals deck. You're now dead, right? Like, so I don't know that fundamentally changes it. It needs like a big clock on it, I think, to make a big impact. It allows other colors to get this effect, but wouldn't you rather just be offensive? Like it feels like it's a losing battle to try to like slam this down against rhinos or something and then like get away with the win. Like you need a clock or something.
Do you play Chalice in your sideboard to fight against the Cascade decks? I know that's like one of the most popular choices right now.
You need 2 to 3 hate pieces and a clock to get it done. So like I would play like Lavinia or something, but Lavinia alone is not enough. Like you need Lavinia and Thalia, or Lavinia and Anointed, whatever the 3-drop guy is, right? Or Lavinia and a Chalice. You need 2 hate pieces and a fast enough clock, right? And then you still might die to like just random air flyers like hitting you because all you played was like, you know, Vexing Bauble into Chalice, whatever. And they're like, okay, cool, bro. I'm just gonna hit you with like Brazen Borrower every turn so you die, right? So I don't know. Like I think the perfect piece would actually be Athalia, like a 2 mana 3/1 because it's power crept and it has this effect, and you can sack it to draw a card. Non-legendary, so you can stack them. Non-legendary, so you can stack them as well.
I mean, yeah, that's true. It doesn't offer a clock. I still think this card is going to be heavily played, though, as a sideboard card. Like, I think it does enough. It hates on the Cascade decks, which is big. It hates on Affinity. It hates on the Evoke Elemental. So I feel like compared to the other cards taking up sideboard slots, like a Chalice.
But Chalice is
Wouldn't I play this over a Chalice? Like,
but if you pop this to draw a card, you're dead, right? They're like, I remove it, and you're like, well, I pop it to draw a card. That better be a counterspell that you drew because they're about to do their thing and kill you, right?
I view the pop it to draw a card as like for when you don't need it. Like I don't think you're popping in response. I mean, you could pop in response to removal, but I think it's kind of like cycling, right? Where you can put this narrowish effect in your deck and like get away with it because
isn't Chalice on 0? Chalice.
No, this is better than Chalice.
Yeah, it is.
This is better than Chalice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm kind of seeing it in that role, kind of, is like a upgraded Chalice style effect. Plus, you can get it off Urza's Saga. Crim, how worried are you about
Saga?
Elementals?
Saga's a good point. It's a Saga target.
We see a lot of like janky one of Pithing Needles and stuff in main decks because you can get them off Urza's Saga, and this like is another fit there. Crim, how scared are you of Evoke Elementals coming to Arena? Like, do you think this card? How big of an impact does this card have on like Timeless? Assuming we do get all the Evoke Elementals, we've seen like 1 or 2 officially previewed so far, so it's kind of a safe guess that we're getting the rest of them. What do you think? Is this an Arena card too?
I mean, it'll be nice to have something to stop the elementals. Like this will be pretty sweet, but I'm more so curious to see what happens when the rest of the set drops. Because right now it just seems okay. I don't think I'd put it in the sideboard yet.
What about
Karn can tutor it?
What about Show and Tell? Is this the answer to Omnitel in Timeless?
Yeah.
Like, because you can't just cast things with Omniscience for free or they're going to get countered, or is it not enough?
This could be pretty good with Omnitel as well against Omnitel. It'll stop that. It'll stop the elementals, but I think there's better ways to go about hitting that deck. The one thing I do like though is this is just 1 mana and it can go in any deck. Any deck can play this. So you know what? Maybe this is actually even better in Arena than I'm giving it credit for. But right now, I want to see the rest of the set.
Best of 1 Timeless. Yeah. You put it main deck and you cycle it if it sucks in the match.
No, like yeah,
I actually think that's right. Part of why they put that on there. Yeah. I think that's actually part of it.
Because if you're using it in your sideboard and you bring it in, you're probably not cycling it, right? Like you most likely are not cycling it because you needed it for your matchup unless your mana screwed. But whereas if you're playing best of 1, you can just shove it main deck and then the cycle becomes relevant. So I like that.
The Loris decks could definitely play it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've seen like Mishra's Bauble. This is more expensive, obviously, but we've seen cheap cantripping artifacts actually get a lot of use, even Chromatic Sphere, Chromatic Star. So it has like a kind of playable history. Other similar cards you play, and this has an interesting hate effect build. It is symmetrical, so I guess you got to keep that in mind, which I'm thankful for. It actually does, yeah. It does.
Vexing Bauble,
too, but
other Bauble. Oops.
Anyway, it's going to be really interesting. Full spoilers start tomorrow. We will have a ton to talk about next week. Speaking of Modern Horizons 3, one of the themes of the set is creatures, iconic creatures, I would say, in Eldrazi form. We've seen Null Drifter. We see a Hunted Wumpus callback is an Eldrazi. We saw Slinging Lieutenant or Siege Gang Commander come back as an Eldrazi. What do you think about this? Is this cool or cringe? That's my question. Are you someone that's like, hey, this is super cool? Or are you like, oh my God, what are you doing, Watsy?
I think it's pretty funny. But like I think it's more so just cool to see them redesign essentially new cards and then just turn them into spaghetti. So like I like seeing it, but for me, it's not like that much cooler to where it's like, oh my God, this changes my experience and like I really enjoy it. But it's also not like cringe either or like bad to me. It's just cool. Like I give it a nod and then I go on with my day.
I like
my
it.
Immersion.
Yeah.
My immersion. Where are all your Universes Beyond haters? At least there's a point for Universes Beyond. They're selling out to make money. What is the point of Null Drifter? What is the point of Null Drifter? It's just lazy. Like, would you rather have some cool spaghetti monster instead of this meme Null Drifter? I wonder if they're going to hit the real iconics. Like, you're going to see Sarah Spaghetti or something, or like Shivan Spaghetti or something like
Sarah
like,
Spaghetti and Parmagoyf.
Oh yeah, like
Ooh,
I wonder
Parmagoyf.
if they're gonna hit the true icons and see like take Jace, turn him into a spaghetti monster. Like there's just so many ways, but I don't know.
But
It's
isn't
just
that
an
the point of
unset, right?
Eldrazi?
If you look at the original unset, it was less about mechanics and more about puns. And then so this is like a silver bordered flavor here, right? And I'm fine with it once in a while, but now it's just now it's just I don't want to say lazy, but it's just like cheesy, but it doesn't really add anything, I don't think.
Like cheesy, like
It's
with Parmagoyf.
Yeah,
like
could you imagine Tarmogoyf with Annihilator 1? That would be such a good card.
that would
actually
great.
make Tarmogoyf good again, I think.
It would
If
be
Annihilator.
Yo, Tarmogoyf already good. All we need is just the same card, but you play 8 of them. That's all we need. Tarmogoyf's good enough.
But,
We got the
so,
one
like,
drop. We're almost there.
Oh God, no, not that.
Annihilator 1 Tarmogoyf would be so disgustingly overpowered.
The Eldrazi taking things over and like that's flavor, isn't it? That makes sense though. Don't they turn everything into spaghetti? So like the Eldrazi are clearly back. So it's not like it's something new, right? Like something that we haven't seen before. The Eldrazi do this all the time. So why wouldn't the Eldrazi take over the creatures that have already existed?
I will say, I like it. It reminds me of Time Spiral. That's one of my favorite blocks. And I like the callbacks. And even the Eldrazi thing, I like the Eldrazi thing. The one thing I'm not clear on is where this fits in lore. Because, like, last we knew, weren't the Eldrazi, like, trapped in Eldritch Moon or whatever? And wasn't that the last of the Eldrazi? Where does this fit in? Is this like a prequel before we got to Shadows over Innistrad and Emrakul's trapped on the moon? Is this happening in the current day and they're off the moon now? Like, that's the part I don't understand about this.
Eldritch Moon was so bad of it that
it doesn't count.
It doesn't count. That's so it's
non-canonical.
Yeah.
Did you really think they were going to trap the Eldrazi in the moon forever, Seth? They're like, well, apparently there's a door here. Just open it. We come out. Cool. There we go.
Yeah. The Eldrazi have figured out how to open doors. Oh no!
Clever girl.
It's over.
Clever girl. Emrakul.
All right, moving on. We'll get to a lot more Modern Horizon stuff next week once we have the full set. There was a post on Reddit this week I wanted to ask you about, and the question was pretty straightforward. Are Commandfests a complete ripoff? And the person said, I paid $75 to go into a Commandfest for a day. I want to do MH3 sealed in Atlanta, but it was going to cost me like $130. is it a ripoff to go to these big Magic cons for the average player? Because we're kind of in a different spot where we're content creators and whatever. Do you think it's worth it for an average player? I know we were just buying tickets to Vegas, Richard. How much was it to get tickets to Vegas? Like, how expensive is it to go to a Magic Con these days?
So MagicCon Vegas is currently on early bird special. So it's $150 for the weekend, or $165, I think, next month, or $60 a day. So that is the baseline, like cheapest non-Black Lotus VIP, whatever. You just get in, you get like one promo or something, two booster packs, and then you're good to go. So $150 for the weekend or $60 a day. That's the current pricing.
So 150, like, that doesn't seem absurd to me. Of course, like, if you want to do other things, you're going to have to pay for those. If you want to do a mystery booster event or things like that, like, that's going to be on top of this. This is the get in the door price. Although I know a lot of people that, you know, just get their ticket and they jam Commander all weekend and just hang out and like talk to people and don't spend any extra money. Do you think it's worth it, Crim? Like the cost of Magic cons and so forth, like, do you think it's at the right spot for it for the average Magic player?
I mean, it simply just comes down to, do you like cons? Do you like going to cons? Do you like doing that? If you're a person that just doesn't prioritize cons or thinks those things are fun or worth it, then I don't think it's worth it, right? Like, if you like the con experience, you're not going for, like, example, it's 130 because you got to pay just to play, right? To get into the building, and then you got to pay again to actually get into the event. From a value standpoint, like, I'm sure you can go and play MH3 sealed at your LGS and just pay the flat fee, and that's better. But then this comes with a trip to Vegas. You got to pay all these things. Like, if you're not a con person, this is not good value.
I think you got to be comparing it not to like going to play at your local LGS or whatever, but like going to Disneyland or like another con, or like, you got to compare it to that, right? Because you're paying for like this atmosphere and this experience. And those things are expensive. Like, if you're going to take a trip across the country to do something for a weekend, it's going to be expensive. Do you think it, like, in that context, it looks a little better, right? Like, or a golf trip, I don't know, like, pick a thing.
Go in,
you get to
hail the atmosphere, Seth.
You get to sit on the floor because they run out of tables and try to play Commander with a bunch of strangers. It's the best.
So I think it depends on what you're comparing it to, like you guys said. But if you compare it to the old GP structure, this is like a total ripoff, right?
Yep.
So the old GP structure was you just walk in for free, okay? Because only if you played in the main event did you pay. So you can walk in, you can access Artist Alley, you can access the vendors, right? So those were all free. You can access the free play areas. So those are free compared to paying $60 a day. And also the events used to be cheaper, right? Like the side events and things like that used to be a lot cheaper. So you can go and just grind side events and just ignore the main event. And it was subsidized to you due to the sweaty tournament grinders and also WotC. Like WotC used to actually, you know, put a lot of money into these events at a loss with the intent that they're promoting the game, right? So if you compare that to today, today's a ripoff, right? Because you have to pay, you know, $60 just to play and $60 just to go shop at vendors, which is kind of weird. Why can't I shop for free? But if you compare it to a con experience, I think it's great value, right? So if you are interested in watching game nights live, is game nights live worth $60 to you? Go to any concert, go to any live show. It's going to cost you way more than that, right? You know, if you wanted to go meet your favorite content creators or something, right? Like that usually is not possible, right? So that $60 for you is probably worth it. If you just want to play Commander all day, I would say it's still probably worth it, right? Like, just having access to that space. If you just like average it out, like that's like $5 an hour or something, right? Like that's probably worth $5 an hour of table space just to play, right? So from that perspective, I think it's worth it. I think the people that think it's bad value is just looking at it from the Grand Prix times where it was basically free. Like it's kind of like when Uber launched and then it was just being subsidized by investor money. So you're like, oh, free ride, cool, right? But now they're charging you the real price. Like, oh, it's so expensive. It's a ripoff, right? So Wizards is no longer subsidizing it. You are paying for it. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think overall that it's worth it. And the other thing is, like, in the grand scheme of things, the ticket to get into the event is like, especially for something like Vegas, is just like such a small part of your overall expense. If you're flying across the country and getting a hotel, like the tickets,
one
like
Benihana's meal and you're done.
Yeah, pretty much.
One Benihana's meal and you've covered the weekend pass, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think the cost is more for people local, right? Like if you lived in Vegas, you're going to Magic Fest Vegas, but obviously like a flight 100
It's
to
several
like 800
times
depending
the
on where
ticket,
you're
yeah.
coming from, right? A hotel is like minimum 100 a night. The food is expensive. Even if you try to dodge the convention food and eat other food, it's still not it's not that cheap, right? So yeah, in the con experience, it's a small amount. But if you're local, if it's like coming to your town, then it's a different story.
I think all
So-
of Vegas's food is so overpriced and fried, and like,
Vegas
I swear,
is, yeah,
like,
the worst
I
example, I guess.
I think I remember what is it? One of the years we all went, I was like, "Yo, is it actually possible to have a salad? Like, is there a vegetable in Vegas?"
They're in the desert,
Like-
Crim. They can't grow vegetables there. That's not how it works.
It's you got to go to a guy in a trench coat. You got to know a guy that knows a guy to get you some like goddamn arugula or something like that.
Crim's just embarrassing himself, asking for kale salad everywhere. We're like,
Yeah.
"This ain't California, bro. It's Nevada.
Bro, what do you want? You
Have
have
some-
LaCroix or
Have
something?
some fries. It's
Avocado?
fried in vegetable oil. Is that good enough for you?"
We paid like what is it? I remember one of the salads we ordered. It was like $30, and it was like 90% ham. And I'm like, this like,
Even the salad's mostly meat. Yeah. All right. I got another topic for y'all. So we just had a ban list update last week, but one of the things they mentioned is the summer ban windows are coming. And if you don't remember from last year, they changed the way they're doing standard banning. So we only ban stuff in standard once a year, right before rotation in the summer. And that's going to be coming up in like a month. We're getting to the summer ban window. My question for you is, we got all the standard sets that we have in the standard. We're going to have rotation, which is going to get rid of both Innistrad sets, Kamigawa, Streets of New Capenna. It's going to leave us with Dominaria United, Brothers War, the Phyrexian trilogy of sets there, Wild Eldraine, Lost Caverns, Ixalan, Ravnica Murders, Outlaws of Thunder Junction, soon Bloomborough. My question is, what should we ban, if anything? Like, is there anything? Last year, we got Fable the Mirror Breaker, Invoke Despair, Reikinder Bankbuster, a little bit earlier, but they kind of said, oh, these are, the standard bannings. We're just doing it earlier because y'all are complaining. Is there anything we want to see banned in standard with an eye to next year's standard, like post-rotation? Anything we just don't want to deal with for another year that you think is too good or should be out of the format?
I do worry a little bit that Void Rend is leaving the format. I say that at like half in jest, but also 99% not in jest. So it's not even half. That's just 1% joke. And that is because I worry that, are artifacts going to be kind of cracked? Like the removals that hit artifacts that I would play, like March of Otherworldly Light, are also rotating, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about that and why that is concerning is because you have Synthesizer, you have Urbresk's Forge, you have all these like artifacts that are kind of just running around and looking kind of nuts.
Our artifacts making it tough on the control decks, Chris.
No, I'm not even talking about all control decks. Like I'm getting my whooped by those on any other deck I'm playing too.
Yeah.
So like these artifacts, I do worry, right? Like a lot of the best answers that kind of kept these artifacts in check are leaving.
That's true.
So we still have other things that obviously can answer it, yes, but they aren't as versatile as like a March of the Otherworldly Light, right? Beseiju is gone, right?
Yep.
So the channel lands are leaving. So because of that, I am curious. I'm not saying that anything needs to be banned yet. I just want to see what it looks like by this time next year. But I am just gonna say that I'm putting artifacts on notice. I am watching you. I am watching you.
I'm so
I've definitely
paranoid
ran
about artifacts.
I mean, in
In
Crim's
every
defense,
format.
I've run into some synthesizer pop-offs that are pretty unbeatable, where they just like get down a quick synthesizer and you're staring down like 20, 30 power constructs super quickly in standard. So I know where you're coming from because that card can definitely do some really scary things. And I've lost to Repress Forge too. That's a card that if the game goes long and you can't deal with it, eventually it is going to kill you. I don't know what you would do about that though. Like, I don't know if you can ban synthesizer, ban Forge or something. I guess maybe we'll get more good artifact hate. Maybe we'll get a replacement in Broomborough for Void Friend, because apparently we need a replacement for Void Friend of all things. But maybe we'll get a replacement that can easily deal with an artifact. What about like Shieldred? Can we get rid of Shieldred? I know it's not. This isn't a year ago when Shieldred was 60% of the meta. But do we want it for another? I mean, this is our only chance to ban things for a whole year. Like we gotta ban something, right? You can't not ban anything during your once a year ban window. Sunfall? Can we get rid of Sunfall, Crim?
No.
How about that?
Why would they get rid of Sunfall when every creature has exponentially gotten better? Like,
just play your no witnesses. You'll be fine.
That's not the
you'll be
same.
good.
They're like, oh my god, that's bad.
Do you know what I learned this weekend, guys? That other card games don't have rotation. This blew my mind. I was like, so when's the One Piece rotation happening? They're like, what are you talking about, bro?
That's the thing. It doesn't.
I'm like, wait, you like what? They know? You're like, no, you just power creep forever. Yu-Gi-Oh apparently doesn't have a standard rotation, and you just keep power creeping for like 20 years. I think that's what we look at. Like Shieldred.
R&D.
Yeah, like Shieldred will get replaced by better Shieldred. Rather than being banned, Sunfall will get replaced by better Sunfall. So I don't know that we're gonna get these cards banned, especially on such a long. Like if Wizards' intent was that you can play your cards for 3 years, it seems silly that they take the most popular, most played cards and then ban them, right? Like it's counteractive to that goal. So I think they just keep them all around and keep printing more broken things so that those staples see less play. Either a direct new black 4-drop, or maybe, I don't know, it's a red card, and red is meta now, and black is not meta anymore. Do like the WoW balancing or something, right? Like make this color broken for a while. So I think that's where we're at, because banning those cards goes against Wizards' goal. The goal was you build a standard deck, and it's still playable. Hopefully it's tier 2. Right? But like if it's just straight up banned, it's just not playable anymore. So your shoulder deck, if it's banned, you can't play it anymore. So just make it tier 2.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're probably right. I think these leaks are so funny because we can't really go into depth on them because they're not official spoilers yet. But one thing I noticed looking through the Modern Horizons 3 leaks is how they very clearly designed a lot of cards with stuff like Bowmasters in mind. You can see a lot of like, throw an extra toughness on my, my 1-drop. So it's a 1/2 instead of a 1/1. You can tell that they were designing these cards in a way to like power creep past the last round of power creep. So I think you're right. That's how it's going to keep going, is they're just going to keep like power creeping. I don't know. Does that apply to standard as much though? Because we're going to have rotation anyway. Like, yeah, you spent $800 on a shoulder deck, but it's still going to rotate sooner or later. So like, I don't know if it applies to much as standard as it does to formats like modern that theoretically don't rotate. But so you think bans? No bans at all?
If Shieldred's going to rotate sooner or later, that's the strengths, right? So then there's no need to ban it. I think you just let it just ride out into the sunset, and then don't have to worry about it. Like the only thing that I think should be banned, not just because we don't like seeing it, not because we're tired of seeing it, not anything like that. The only reason why we should ban something is because it actually just ruins the game. And some people are like, but Shieldred ruins my double draw deck game plan. I'm like, it does ruin your double draw deck. Yes, I am sorry, But I mean, like fundamentally, if it is breaking the game, like we're talking like where like I would argue, like the free elementals and things like that in Modern Horizons, right? Those were ruining the game. I think those are the only things that need to go, because a ban shouldn't just happen all willy-nilly, right? It should happen with very good reason. Because I remember back in Cobblade era that like it wasn't until like a month before that Jace was rotating that he got banned. At that point, why ban it, right? Just let him. He's already done his thing, which is an argument to maybe ban Shieldred, sure, but like Shieldred's not really breaking the game. I don't think Shieldred's just just a powerful card. And powerful cards can exist. So as of right now, I actually feel like the standard is kind of insanely balanced.
What about Atraxa? Can we ban Atraxa? I feel like we got to ban something.
Why-
or else
why-
what's the
why-
point of a
why do you
1-year
wanna
ban
ban?
window?
Why do you want to?
Yeah, why you want
What's
to
the-
be banned so bad, Sam?
It's our
Yeah.
once a year. We only get. It's like Christmas. How do you go Christmas? Not get a Christmas present. You're sad all year. We gotta have
Seth-
some sort of.
No,
we gotta have some sort
The
of
way-
change.
The way to look at this is Seth is like in those gladiator arenas, and he just wants blood. He doesn't care where it
Something's
comes
gotta
from.
go. I don't know.
Something's
Pick
just
a
gotta
random
go.
card, Watsy, and ban it. I'll be on board. All right, let me ask you this then. We're almost at rotation. Give me one card from Standard that you're most happy to see rotating. Because it's been 3 years for some of these cards. Is there anything, Crim, that you're like, yeah, we didn't have to ban it or anything, but you know what? I'm gonna be glad that I'm not facing down this card again after 3 years. Because I know mine, my God, actually there's a few, but the biggest one for me, Rafine. Rafine never got good enough that it had to be like banned or anything, but good Lord, I have seen that card. I can't even count the number of games that I'm staring down a turn 3 Rafine, trying to snowball to a victory with this little ward on there so you can't kill it easy. I will be glad when
What are you
Rafine's
talking about,
gone.
Seth? You just play Void Ren.
Not all of us can have a Void Ren, Crim. But I'll be glad when Rafine's gone. And also Wandering Emperor. I will be glad when Wandering Emperor is gone. I've seen that card way too much too.
I think Wandering Emperor is a must and a need for the format. It keeps players honest when they see 4 mana open. But
That's true.
I'm trying to think of like cards that I don't want to see anymore. And to be honest with you, I think I don't actually have one that just sticks out of my mind that I'm happy to see like leave. I mean, maybe, I love them. I love them a whole lot. But maybe the Channel Lands.
Ooh. Also Triomes. That's another good one. I love Triomes too, but I'm ready for us not to have those super perfect mana bases. Channel Lands are pretty OP. That's another good one. Although, how are you going to beat the artifacts without the Beseju, Crim?
That's the
Simulacrum
problem.
synthesizers
That is the
coming
problem.
for you.
That
This is just listed like literally everything in the top 10 playable cards.
What do you think, Richard? Have you been playing any Standard? What do you think about all this?
My answer is null. Nothing. Because Modern is the new Standard. It's what Standard wants to
it
be.
is
Every time you play it, it's new. Right? Every time you play it, the metagame is different.
It's not.
But you can always just bring trusty old Tarmogoyf out and still play right? So it's
No, you can't.
I think it's literally what Wizards want Standard to be. Right? Like it's fresh like every set. And your longtime deck never disappears. It may become trash, but you can still sleeve it up and go play it. So I'm actually off of Standard. I have no need to play Standard anymore. Between Modern and Commander, like I get enough freshness. I get enough fresh vegetables, Crim, that's good.
Oh, all right. I think we're heading towards the end of the cast, but we got a couple minutes, so I think that means it might be time for a Fishmail. Richard, why don't you take it away?
All right. If you have questions, send them to at MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. Oh, we got some cheaty fish mail here with people pasting like full screenshots of text here. We don't have time to go over that. Ooh, okay, the Trinket Mage. Do you think most players know what goldfishing is, or do players think you have a quirky fish mascot? Do you think people know what goldfishing is anymore?
I don't think newer players. I bet not. I bet the arena generation, all those arena zoomers. I think Sparky is the equivalent for a zoomer to goldfishing for us boomers. It's just like because Sparky is kind of the same, right? You just like play against an almost non-existent opponent to test out your deck.
I mean, Sparky does BM you though. Like Sparky does
and
BM
sometimes
you.
kill its own creatures for no reason. You never know with Sparky. It's a wild card. Sparky's a wild card.
I mean,
All
I think that as long as like the newer players, as long as they're trying to play tournaments and things like that, I think people may not know it, but they are goldfishing, right? When they shuffle their deck up and they kind of just like, all right, I want to see how my deck runs, right? Like, well, like just like what's the basic thought pattern I'm trying to go on with this deck? They'll shuffle their hand up and then, or shuffle their deck up and deal themselves a hand, and then they're actually goldfishing.
All right. This is an interesting one. Fulamog. How do we feel about puns on Eldrazi names as Twitter handles? Is Disciple of Kalis Nin socially acceptable land hate in Commander? 5 mana, 3/4. When it enters battlefield starting with you, each player chooses up to 5 permanents they control. All permanents other than Disciple of Nin that weren't chosen this way phase out. Permanents can't phase in.
I think so, because all it takes is a single removal spell to deal with it, right? Like everyone, all they got to do is kill it, and everything is going to come back into play on the next turn. So I think it's acceptable. This
Isn't
is
that the reason that people don't like Droneth Magistrate? They can't handle Droneth Magistrate. Why would they be able to handle this?
I just want to get someone who Teferi protections. That's what I really want to do, is wait until Richard T pros and then just flash this in. I don't even care about it phasing out. I just want to keep you from phasing back in, because it would be so funny. I actually have it. I have this like pile of cards for Commander Clash that I use regularly, and this is my staple pile, even though I almost never play it, because someday I'm going to get you with
it. The problem is you don't play it the way Richard Garfield intended. Like, if you just slap this down, cool, right? But what you will do in reality is play try Lotus Veil lands that make more mana. You're not going to just have 5 lands when you cast this. You're going to slap boots on it. You're going to hold protection for it, and you're just effectively going to phase everything out forever. That's the problem. If you just slap this down with no protection, with no like asymmetrical deck building, then like no one cares. But that's not how you normally play Magic cards, right? You play them to get maximum value. And in this case, maximum value is stacks out the table, right? So like that's what you're going to eventually do. So I guess it depends on intent, right? I guess you could build a Blood Moon deck playing all non-basics and be like, I got myself guides, it's fair, right? But typically you don't do that, right? Like typically you're going to play it in such a way that it does maximum stacks. And then this is kind of funny though. I think there's another one that I don't know if this was the card. I was actually looking at T-Pro Hate one day, and I found a bunch of cards that permanents can't phase in. I'm like, oh, we got to use this, right? But
it'd just be so good.
It is funny. I mean, it should just say like permanents can't phase in. That's it. Just a 2 mana 2/2 flash, permanents can't phase in, and therefore you get the T-Pro player, but you don't randomly like stacks out the table for fun, right? So yeah. I would actually want to see something like that.
I actually hope they print that.
Even good?
They should print that at some point. No, I mean it's 5.
Okay,
this card is really not good.
If you build around it, it's really good.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, maybe you could build around it. Is it?
You could stacks out the table with this quite easily, you know?
Yeah.
Because they get 5 permanents, they're probably choosing 5 lands, right?
Most likely, yeah.
And then you play only soul lands and Lotus lands, so you're good to go. And you protect this?
But a single swords or path or void rend and it all falls apart.
You put a Swiftfoot boots on this. You blink it every turn just for maximum value, so they don't ever get out under it. like if you want, I'm pretty sure you can turn this into a legitimate like lock out the game piece.
Is there a way you can blink this? Is there a way you can blink this so your permanents phase back in? Kind of like the Urza like Winter Orb trick. Is there a timing where you can blink this so your stuff phases back in, but your opponent's stuff doesn't? I don't think so. That would be super sweet though. Maybe we need a Disciple of Kalis Nin week on Commander Clash so you can stacks each other out hardest. Let us know if you want to see that in the comments.
I mean, this is the true way phasing is supposed to work. If I recall correctly, Teferi phased out for like hundreds of years by accident. Like, he didn't phase in the next turn, okay? He like literally just doped out there, came back an old man, right? So that's how phasing should be. All right.
Anyway.
Yeah, future questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air.
And I believe that brings us to the end of episode 485 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So Richard and Crim, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to our sponsors for supporting the show. And we'll be back next week to talk about whatever goes on in the world of Magic, and definitely some Modern Horizons 3 spoilers. So until then, have an amazing week, everyone. And this is a crew signing out.